Hey y'all, it's Miss Flores. So today we are going to talk about least common denominators. So yesterday we learned how to find equivalent fractions, which is really important with adding and subtracting fractions. Now we're going to learn how to figure out what denominator we can change our denominators to when we're adding or subtracting. So let's say I've got this problem. I've got 1/2 plus 1/4. So in 4th grade, y'all are used to adding fractions just the top right, and they already have the same denominator. In 5th grade, they've got different denominators. So you do not add them like 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus 4 is 6, right? You do not do that. You need to make sure that they have what is called a common denominator. So their denominator has to be the same. So I'm going to look at our denominators. We've got 2 and 4. And we're going to think about their multiples. Remember, multiples is like skip counting. So we're going to skip count by 2 and 4 and see what number do they share first. So if I've had 2 and 4, I would skip count by 2 and 4. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 8. All right, 4 would have 4, 8, 12, 16. So their common denominators, you can see that they have 4 in common, right? They've got 4 in common, they've got 8 in common, and eventually you'd see that they'd have 16 in common, right? But we're wanting to find the least common denominator, meaning the first number that they both share. In this case, that would be 4. So their least common denominator, or LCD, would be 4. So you could turn both of these numbers into fourths to do your addition problem. All right, let's try another one. So I've got 3 6ths and 4 8ths. I want to find their least common denominator, right? So I'm going to look at their denominators. We've got 6 and we've got 5. So we're going to skip count by 6 and 5 until we see a number that they have in common. So I have 5, I've got 6. Well, 5 would be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And 6 would be 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. So the first number of the multiples of 5 and 6 that they have in common is 30, which means that their least common denominator would be 30. You could turn both of these fractions into 30ths. Let's look at the next one. So all we're doing for finding multiples is we are just skip counting by these numbers. So I've got 2/3 and 30. So I'm finding the least common denominator of 3 and 30. So those are the numbers we're going to skip count by. So 3 and 30. 3 would be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. 30 would be 30, 60, 90, 120. So you notice how 30s, those numbers are getting pretty big pretty fast, right? And 3, we haven't even reached the 30s yet, right? So 30 I'll want to hold off on, and I'll want to continue my skip counting for 3. So 3, we left off at 21. Our next would be 24, 27, and then I would have 30. Well, 30 is the first number they have in common. So you notice that 30 didn't even really have to have a multiple, right? 30, the first multiple of 30 is just 30. So 30 would be their least common denominator. Sometimes one number doesn't even have to change at all because it already is a multiple of our other number. So in this case, 30 was already a multiple of 3. Let's look at another one. We've got 8 20ths and 10. So we're finding the least common denominator of 20 and of 10. So let's do our multiples of 20 and 10. So 20 would be 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. 10 would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So on here, you can see the first multiple that is on both of those that they share would be 20, right? So it's kind of like the 3 and 30. 20 didn't even have to change because 20 was already a multiple of, 30 was already a multiple of 3, right? So in this case, same thing. 20 was already a multiple of 10, so 20 would be their least common denominator. So if this was an addition problem, I wouldn't have to change our 8/20ths. I would only have to change the 4/10. Let's look at another problem. Let's say we've got 4/6 and 2/9. We're finding their least common denominator of 6 and 9. So let's count by 6 and 9. So 6 is going to be 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. 9 would be 9, 18, 27, 36. So if I look at both of these lists, I can see that 18 is the first multiple that both of them share. So their least common denominator would be 18. Least common denominator would be 18. All right, we got just a few more. We'll do 4 more together before we talk about y'all's assignment. All right, so we got 1/4 and 11/16. So we're finding their least common denominator, right? So we're trying to find the least common denominator of 4 and 16. Well, let's skip count to figure out what that would be. We've got 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 16, another 16 would be 32, another 16 would be 48. Well, I can see here that 16 is on both these lists, right? So 16 didn't have to change, just like when we had 20 and 10 and 3 and 30. 16 did not have to change because 16 is already a multiple of 4, so the least common denominator of both of them would be 16. All right, let's look at the next one. We've got 9/18 and 3/6. So we're finding their least common denominator of 18 and 6. So we will skip count by both of those numbers to figure out what our least common denominator is. Well, 18 would be 18, another 18 would be 36, another 18 would be 54. I think that's about as high as we need to go for 18, because 6, chances are we're probably going to run into something before then, right? Because that's pretty high up. Well, 6 would be 6, 12, 18, right? We see 18 on both our lists. Just like before, 18 is already a multiple of 6, so it did not even have to change at all. So our least common denominator of 18 and 6 is going to be 18. Let's look at, we got 2 more. We've got 1/8 and 4/12. So we're finding their least common denominator, right, of 18 and 12. So that's what we're going to count by. So we're going to count by 18 and 12. 8 and 12. Well, let's skip count by 8. We got 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. Almost got ahead of myself. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. Those are our multiples of 8. Let's look at 12. We got 12, 24, 36. Well, we can see that 24 shows up on both of these, right? That's our first multiple that shows up on both lists. So 24 is going to be our least common denominator. All right, the last one together. We've got 5/6 and 12/24. So we are finding the least common denominator of 6 and 24. Well, let's skip count. We'll skip count by 6 and 24. All right, starting at 6, we've got 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. And with 24, we've got 24, 48. Another 24 would be 52, 72. Yes. All right. So we've got our multiples of 24, our multiples of 6. But we can see that 24 is the first number to show up on both these lists, right? So 24 didn't even have to change. 24 is already a multiple of 6. So their least common denominator is 24. So that is how we find least common denominators. You find least common denominators by listing the multiples of our denominators, finding the first one that they have in common. That is how you find our least common denominators. For our assignment today, we've got a Google form where you're presented with two fractions and you're trying to find the least common denominator of both of those fractions, just like what we just did. And that's all we've got today. We'll go over questions about that assignment at our second meeting of the day. And I will talk to y'all later. Have a fantastic day, guys. Bye.